How to Raise Financially Aware Kids. This is presented by Heffernan Consulting, and we are so happy that you can join us today. I'm going to be your moderator, and I'll monitor your questions and help you as we go along. My name is Phaedra Buxman, and I'm so happy that you're all here. Before we get the session started, I'd like to just review a couple of key items with you. On your screen, you'll see the web page where most of you probably registered, and this has the resource materials that we are going to be discussing today. If you scroll down towards the bottom of the screen, here is the title of the webinar, and there's a book. It's about 200 and some, I think 270 pages, but you can download it here, and also a copy of the PowerPoint presentation in PDF form is there. As well as you'll see that there are future and upcoming webinars presented by Heffernan Consulting. There's the employment law update next week. In March, there's navigating leave of absence laws in California, as well as successful separations. We also offer the mandatory preventing sexual harassment trainings 4 times a year. You can click on this link here, and it'll take you to the available dates. In February, June, and September, we have English sessions, and in October, we have Spanish. So again, we want to refer you back to that site for resources and future webinars. If you have any trouble with your internet connection during the webinar, we recommend that you go ahead and leave the presentation and then log back in. If you have audio difficulties or a telephone line goes dead during the call, please hang up and call the same number again. However, if all lines go dead, watch the on-screen chat box for an alternative call-in number. Please feel free to ask questions or provide feedback via the question or chat box on your GoToWebinar control box. Depending on which format and which program you're using, your options may appear differently. If we don't respond immediately, we will work your questions or feedback into the presentation at the end. If we can't get to your comment or question during the session, we'll stay online for a few minutes afterwards. As well as, you can always email us. Our email address is down here at the bottom. It's moderator@aspenrmg.com, moderator@aspenrmg.com, as well as there will be contact information on the presentation. This will be a 1-hour presentation. Questions and comments are encouraged. And of course, if you are using a tablet and you want to use the question or chat box, you may have to touch the screen for the option box to come up. With that, I'm going to go ahead and turn the screen over to our presenter, Rebecca Tapia, and she's going to share her presentation with us, and I will give you a little more information about Rebecca. So today's presentation is brought to you by American Century Investments and Rebecca Tapia of Heffernan Retirement Services. Ms. Tapia joined the Heffernan Group in 2003 as an assistant account manager and joined the Heffernan Investment Advisors in 2006 as a research analyst and portfolio manager. In 2011, she joined the Heffernan Retirement Services as an education specialist and prepared for her FINRA registration. In the same year, Rebecca passed her Series 7 and Series 66 exams. She was promoted in 2011 to financial consultant while continuing her efforts as an education specialist. Ms. Tapia is responsible for conducting group and individual education meetings for the HRS plan participants. She also manages her own book of business as a financial advisor to pre-retirees and retirees. Rebecca Tapia is a member of the Heffernan Retirement Services Research Group and also serves on the Retirement Plan Committee. Rebecca received her Bachelor of Science degree in Finance from Cal State Hayward and her Certificate of Completion for the Certified Financial Planning Program from the University of California at Berkeley, and is currently pursuing her Certified Financial Planner designation. In 2014, Ms. Tapia attended the Plan Success Certification Program from Alliance Global Investor Center for Behavioral Finance to become a Certified Behavioral Finance Analyst. The program provided an in-depth investigation and education of behavioral finance principles behind the plan success system and how you can utilize it to enhance behavioral health of your existing and prospective clients' defined contribution plans. Behavioral finance is an offshoot of behavioral economics, which is a combination of psychological principles and economic theory. Rebecca also holds licensing for life, health, and long-term care insurance, as well as Series 7 and Series 66 registrations through the LPL Financial. With that, again, I'd like to thank you all very much for joining us, and I will turn you over to Rebecca.
Thank you so much, Phaedra, for the introduction. I really appreciate that. And again, thank you all for joining me today. Well, we'll definitely get started. We want to show you, of course, the disclaimers. But as we get started, is this a phrase you often hear? I want, I want, I want, and I want. Well, how many times have you heard that from your children? Don't you wish you had a way to turn that flowing faucet of gimme into a thoughtful human being who understands what it takes to earn a dollar and the importance of spending it wisely? Well, now you can. With this presentation, and yes, you can, Raise Financially Aware Kids, you have a fun resource to teach your children to appreciate the value of dollars. We will provide you with resources and activities to show your children the fundamental financial principles. So I'm very excited to talk about this topic today. And today we will focus on three primary areas: why it is important to raise your kids in a financially aware manner, how can you raise financially aware kids and grandkids, and then we'll wrap up by showing some examples and illustrations to prove several key points. So James E. Stowers stated, it is important that your children learn what they can do with their money early in life so they will apply these lessons learned at home as they face the real world in future years. And Jim Stowers reminds us of two things. One, it's important that kids learn about money at an early age, and two, that the lessons that they learn are mostly learned at home. So before we kind of dig into the presentation today, I do want to first ask our first polling question. Phaedra?
Perfect. Give me just one moment as I launch that through our system here, and everybody will be able to click on their screen to provide their answer. In a course of a year, how much do children contribute to the economy with their own money? So everybody can take a moment and go ahead and click on the answer that they feel is most appropriate. And for these polling questions, just so everybody knows, I generally give you about 25 to 30 seconds. I know that doesn't seem like long, but you'll see it goes pretty easy, and the more questions we ask, the faster you get at providing answers. So right now we are about 75% in with our answers, so I will go ahead and give everybody just a couple more seconds and share those answers. One moment here. All right, so Rebecca, our audience, here is what they think. 43% feel that it's 25 million, 14% 100 billion, 29% at 25 billion, and 14% at 100 million. How about you let us know what the proper answer is?
Absolutely. Well, the correct answer is actually 25 billion. That's how much your children contribute to the economy of their own money, including birthday checks and allowances. So we're definitely going to now continue our presentation and explain this fact. All right, here we go. So the reasons these key lessons are important is because every day, whether we realize it or not, our kids are target of marketers. And by the time they are 5 years old, the typical kid will be hit with 30,000 or more advertisements. It's amazing. But these ads are aimed at impressionable children with the goal of making them insatiable consumers. And it's definitely working. Annually, children have a powerful influence on our economy. They directly influence $188 billion worth of spending for their personal wants and needs. As advisors to their parents, imagine that. Kids are advising their parents how they should spend their money. They influence about $300 billion. So think about it. The last time you bought a car, or when your friends bought a car, was it solely your decision, or did the kids come along and have their vote as to what type of car you should get? And as consumers, kids yield a lot of financial clout. Over the course of the year, they contribute $25 billion into the economy of their own money. So again, that's a lot of spending for birthday checks and allowances. Pretty amazing. A recent survey of high school students found that 88% of what they know about their finances they learned from their parents, which makes sense. So just as your children may have inherited your unique genetics, they are also inheriting your money habits. So that means that they're learning their money habits from you. Even today, whether you try to or not, you're probably taught your children something about money. You taught them about by your actions and your attitudes. So what lessons do your kids need to know to be financially successful? It really boils down to 4 things: ways to earn money, saving for the short term, how to invest for the long term, and how to make wise spending decisions. So you may ask, what's your role in teaching your kids to be financially aware? Well, I like to use CFP, or Chief Financial Parent, I love that, to describe your relationship in teaching your kids about money. Now, we all value money differently in our lives, maybe depending on how we were raised and how much money we have to spend or save. But the number one thing you should take away from this presentation today, if nothing else, is that just talking about money with your children can provide profound impact on them, and they will have a tendency to save more because you took the time to discuss it with them. Many parents agree that talking about money is easier than talking about sex with their kids, but it doesn't occur to parents to talk about money. The good news is kids are curious about money, and they want to learn about how to earn it and what to do with it. Many of you may be wondering, well, how can I really raise financially aware kids? Well, it boils down to understanding the concepts of money, putting in the work with providing an allowance, and showing techniques on how to manage money. So first, when we begin, let's understand what money is. And money is defined as something generally accepted as a medium of exchange, a measure of value, or a means of payment. To your children and grandchildren, money is your value system personified through your financial behavior. I think the most important thing to understand is that discussing money is important, but demonstrating good money behavior is vital. Your actions always speak louder than words. So like I said before, what your kids learn begins with how you handle money and the role it plays in your life. Before you start passing along these values, it's best that you understand your money history. So think back to when you were growing up. What money principles did you learn? Did you experience hardships or successes? How did these make you feel? Are there times even today when you think back on those times? What influence do those experiences have on you today in the way you manage your money? Same thing goes with your parents or grandparents. What stories did they tell you? What did your parents' actions show you about money? Growing up, did you feel as though you barely made ends meet, or was there always enough money to go around? Again, how does that experience influence your relationship with money? Remember that the way you think about money and manage money is very likely the same way your kids will handle it. Are you really teaching them the lessons you want them to learn that they will help them grow into financially aware adults? So we understand that talking about money can be a challenge, especially if you don't know where to begin. And that's why I suggest having the talk with your kids. So talk, act, lead, and know. So the talk should happen as young as possible. As a parent, you have the best idea to when the right time is. But trust me, if you wait until your child is in high school, it tends to become too late. Kids as young as age 3 can understand some of the basic concepts like bartering. As your kids get older, you can increase the complexity. Act casually. Talking about money should be no different than talking about sports, the weekly schedule, or what's for dinner. Money is an integral part of your everyday life. Having conversations about it should be casual and relaxed. Leave money in its proper place. Accumulating money for the sake of being rich shouldn't be the end goal. Focus on your conversations on how to wisely use your money you have. Living within your means is the same as financial independence. And lastly, know your audience. Direct your conversation about money to your child's age and interest. Draw them in to talk about money in the way that is meaningful to them. Take nothing for granted. Ask simple questions to learn more about what your child thinks about money. And use stories from your own life to make it more relevant. Above all, Make it a dialogue. Sprinkle questions throughout your conversation and listen carefully to the answers. Everyone loves attention. Your questions and attentive listening give your children a sense of acceptance that will deepen your family bond. So in your conversations with your child, you've probably heard some things that you don't agree with or you don't directly align with how you think your child should be spending their money. And that's why it's important to ask questions to better understand your child's perspective and how they think about the way they're spending their money. For example, a young child may look at a stuffed animal and say, I need that. You might think, well, that's a toy. It's not a need. It's a want. But to a young child, a stuffed animal could be more than just a toy. It could provide a sense of comfort and security. As your child gets older, there could be still a gap between what you see and wants versus what they see as needs. So for example, you might think that instead of buying designer clothing for your children, that they should find a cheaper alternative. Your child may feel that designer clothing will lead to peer acceptance, or an MP3 player might be a distraction to homework for you, but for your child who's grown up constantly plugged in, it provides a safe place to focus on the tasks that needs to be done. Well, the important thing really here is to understand their priorities, not judge them. So your conversation should focus on if they feel they're getting the value for what they're buying, not if they are spending their money the way you think they should. This is also a good time to talk about opportunity costs, that for every dollar they spend today, they lose the opportunity to spend it on something else in the future. So earlier I said kids as young as age 3 can understand some basic concepts. Well, let me give you a little bit more detail. One example is bartering. So sit down with your child and offer to trade one item for another. It could be a toy or stuffed animal. Notice how they value one over the other. One item is worth more to the child than the other. Same concept when they get older and they're deciding how to spend their money. They think about what's worth more, the cash in their hand or the item for which they're considering trading the cash. The concept of earning can be shared through household chores. Your child can earn the opportunity to watch a video if a certain task is completed. Talking about saving is as simple as counting. Have your child put a penny on each fingertip and count with them as they do. Once they have all 5 fingers covered, put the money in a savings bank and talk to them how that money is now saved so they can use it later if they choose. And building on this exercise, do the same thing, but tell your child that you'll give them a penny once they've saved enough pennies to cover each finger. And this is a concept of investing and earning interest. Currency is not only money, but it can be whatever a child values the most, such as a TV or game time for a younger child, or maybe driving time for a 16-year-old. Think outside the box when explaining concepts such as currency and bartering, etc. And as your kids get older, you can definitely go deeper into each subject and situation. All right, now it's time for polling question number 2 as we get into the next subject. Phaedra?
Great. Let me go ahead and launch that for everybody. Sorry, a little slow on the button there. Here we go. All right. Do kids that receive an allowance save more than those who don't? And so I'm sure all of you are already far quicker on your clickers this time. Seems to go a little easier the second time around. And there's only 2 options. So almost everybody has provided their input on this. So I'm going to give everybody just about another 5 or 6 seconds, and then I'll close it down and share everybody's input. All right. Okay. So Rebecca, our audience is split. 63% say yes, they do, and 38% say no, they don't.
Nice. Okay. Well, to answer the question, it's actually yes. Those who do receive an allowance do tend to save more than those who don't, which is, I know, surprising as well when I read this. But, you know, let me go back to showing my screen and moving on to the next slide because we're going to dig into why. So an allowance is actually a great way to teach kids to appreciate the value of a dollar. And even better, research again shows that kids who receive an allowance tend to save more than those who don't. So you're probably wondering, should you give an allowance? And so, when and how much? So let's answer all of these questions. So no doubt giving your child an allowance provides them with hands-on training for the future. And really that's probably the #1 reason to give your child an allowance is to help teach them to manage money. So here are 3 different philosophies to help determine how to manage the allowance experience. So some parents believe allowances should be given without expectations of chores completed, school grades maintained, or good behavior. They suggest that children should strive to meet these expectations as family members, regardless of whether or not an allowance is being given. Allowances are given unconditionally. So under this philosophy, the entrepreneurial spirit may still be rewarded if children have a special goal or would like to earn additional money. Help them find some useful work around the house and pay for its completion. And other parents believe an allowance should be compensation for work done, so children don't get stuck in this entitlement mentality. Under this philosophy, expectations should be set clearly about what work needs to be completed, the quality expected, and within what time frame before the allowance will be paid. This experience may mirror job situations in which your children will find themselves in later years. Rather than rely on a set allowance, some parents develop their own system of providing children money for expressed wants and needs based on circumstances. This philosophy supports budget considerations and can be used to encourage development of work ethics and manage a child's purchasing power. Bottom line, it's about learning. Accept the fact that they're going to make mistakes. That's part of the process. Better that they should make them now than make them later in life where it's harder to manage. This should definitely provide a fun way to help your kids grow, not a power struggle about whether they get an allowance and how much. So you're probably wondering, when should I start? Well, before you start giving an allowance, take some time to determine your child's allowance readiness. One of the first things to look at is their interest level. Are they asking you for it, or are they ready for the responsibility? They should understand the value of money. This includes being able to identify different coins and paper money. They should also be able to count up to 100 so they can properly count their change. When you start giving an allowance, be sure that they have a safe place to keep it going so it won't get lost. And this is a great time to introduce them to the concept of a piggy bank, or better yet, an FDIC-insured bank where they can open a savings account. While determining the difference between needs and wants is an ongoing lesson, your child should have a basic understanding of the differences between the two. This is key in making good purchasing decisions and being able to save for the long term. Finally, are they willing to practice the discipline of saving? While the desire to accumulate can be powerful, there should also be a desire to save. So how much should it be? Deciding how much to give is another decision you'll be faced with. So there are several factors to consider. First is obviously your child's age. Younger children have less need for money. Think about it. A 5-year-old isn't dating, driving, or going out with friends. There's no reason to give a young child any more money than they reasonably would need to cover their occasional purchase. And some parents set a fixed amount for each week. Parents who adopt a pay-for-work philosophy may end up paying different amounts each week. So how much they pay each week fluctuates with the child's performance. Your own income is a determining factor in how much you should give them. It should work within your budget. Given the choice of funding your emergency fund or your child's allowance, well, obviously the emergency fund comes first. But what's the allowance for? Part of your conversation with your child is to determine what the allowance covers. By working together, you should be able to identify these expenses and determine how much to give. The challenge will be to stick to your plan, and if your child overspends, be willing to let him or her live with the consequences. There are many factors that influence how much you should give as an allowance, and many parents practice a philosophy about $1 per year of age. That means that a child who is 12 years old could get a $12 weekly allowance. Inevitably, your child is going to come back to you at some point or another to ask for a raise. Take this opportunity to advance their learning to the next level and create a spending plan. This will help a lot. A spending plan helps them track how they spend their money over a period of time and how they plan to use it going forward. Review their expenses and talk with them to see if they got their money's worth. Are they still enjoying how they spent their money, or is the excitement gone? Given the option, would they rather have their money back, or are they happy with how they spent it? did they really need what they purchased? Were any of them impulse buys? Where they got swept away in the moment? This is a time to listen carefully to the answers so you can understand their point of view. Remember, this isn't a time for conflict, but a great time for teaching. As you're making your decision whether to raise your allowance or not, get feedback from other parents and see what they're doing. But before you do anything, reflect on what sort of lessons you're teaching your child and the money values you want him or her to grow up with. All right, so our last polling question, which I hope these are great polling questions for you all. Phaedra?
All right, let me go ahead and launch that. Here we go. So money management can mean which of the following? Gaining greater control over income and expenditures, analyzing your costs and income, how much risk a decision maker should take in situations, or all of the above. I often find when all of the above is offered, sometimes that's a good way to go.
Exactly.
If all money decisions could be that simple.
Right, exactly.
Well, I'm going to go ahead and close this down because it looks like our audience has been super fast. And of course, the answer was all of the above, 100%.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. All right. So now diving into our money management section, based upon basically the definition previously. An allowance is just the start of a child's financial education, as we know. The good thing about an allowance is that it does provide a safe place for children to learn and make mistakes with money without lasting consequences, as some of us may have experienced in our lives. The downside to an allowance is that it doesn't provide the child a context for real-world finance. Now, I mentioned having your child create a spending plan, and this is also a great time to share your plan with your child. Show them where your income comes from, how you're saving and investing, and what you spend each month on things like mortgage, utilities, and food. This will give them a context for the real world and what they can expect when they grow up. There are tools available, and yes, you can curriculum to assist you with this process. The tools I'm referring to are called FIT tools. FIT means Financially Independent Today. And for example, there's a simple plan, which is shown here, with just a few data fields, and there's other tools that are more complex. But they're designed to be used to help explain certain complex subjects to young adults. You could introduce yourself and your kids to them by visiting yesyoucanonline.info, which is going to be, a link is going to be included in the presentation at the end as well. And lastly, discuss how you earn money and what things on your spending plan are needs versus wants. Show the pay yourself first concept in action, like saving to retirement. And explain how the more in control you are of your spending, the more control you are of your life. So that first point is really an important one to emphasize, because having goals and plans is really about personal control, definitely. But something your child may want to save toward, you can include as a major purchase, like a car, a special event like prom, or for personal growth like college or summer camp. The Yes You Can curriculum includes a saving goal fit tool to help you demonstrate how to save for a future goal and the impact the investment interest rate will have on them being able to achieve that goal. If your kids are like most, keeping them on track is definitely going to be a challenge, but here's a four-step approach to staying on track. Step one, talk with your child about what he or she wants to do. This isn't so much about what they want to buy, but what sort of experiences do they want to have. Naturally, there will be things to buy on the list, and that's okay. List as many as they can think of. Second, ask them to pick only one thing. If there's only one thing on their list that they could do, what would that be? Third, determine what changes in their financial decisions might enable them to achieve their goals. Earning extra money, spending less, saving more, etc. Those kind of examples. And finally, discuss the importance of making decisions that support their primary goal. For example, if their goal is to save money for the homecoming dance, then every time they're at a store deciding to buy something, they should ask the question, is this going to help me reach my goal of going to the homecoming dance? This is a great example, as I definitely utilize that every day of my life when I'm at the store. But basically, decisions on how to spend money are easier when you have a plan or a filter to work with. And even with an allowance, your kids may find that their wants exceed their budget. This is a natural time to talk to them about ways to earn more money. This experience will give your kids the opportunity to discover their passion and special abilities. We all know work is more enjoyable when you're doing something you're passionate about. Kids who earn their own money are also learning about the relationship between time and money. So as they're thinking about their next big purchase, they can think about how many hours they need to work in order to buy what they want. Thinking about ways to earn more money helps kids be creative and exercise their problem-solving skills. It also increases their independence because they won't be coming to you every time that they want to buy something. Well, hopefully, but we'll see. And some of the ways that they can earn more include doing chores for pay around the house, reaching out to neighbors to help with their chores, or getting a part-time job after school. If the last one is an option in your home, this is a great opportunity to talk about employer expectations as well as how Uncle Sam gets a portion of each dollar they earn. The tax discussion. That should be another presentation. But as your child begins to earn money, it may be tempting to them to spend it all. But as their CFP, Certified Financial Parent, you need to steer them towards saving and eventually investing. There are 4 keys to accumulating wealth, and they are, first, to start as early as possible. It takes significantly less money to accomplish what you want when you have more time working for you. Save on a regular basis. It's an easy way to accumulate wealth. Many of us do this through our payroll deductions into a retirement plan. Your kids can do it in a similar way by automatically putting 1/3 of their allowance or earnings into a bank. Begin with the largest sum possible. If your kids already have money in savings, they are ahead of the game when it comes to accumulating wealth. But by leaving the money there, they have more money working for them over a longer period of time. And lastly, reach for the highest rate of return that's safe for you. Each additional percent is important. The higher the rate, the less money it will take to accumulate wealth over a long term. And with all this adds up to is the concept of compounding. Compounding is a way to make money with money. It takes into consideration time and rate of return. While this may seem like a complex subject to explain to a child, it's actually quite simple. For example, a farmer can plant a single seed of wheat, care for it, and over time create 100 seeds from it. If these 100 seeds were planted and properly cared for, they would produce at least 10,000 more seeds of wheat. This is the same concept as compounding. Money properly cared for over time will grow and multiply. Bottom line, what we want kids to understand is, and do, is think before they spend. The lessons are really fairly simple. Determine if something is a need or a want. Got to factor in true cost, whether it's comparing the cost to hours worked or the number of allowances they need to save to make the purchase. Finding the best price. Comparison shopping, whether online or by going to another store, can often lead to considerable savings on the same item. Make certain that they're getting good value for their money. An inexpensive gaming system that breaks after a short while may not be as good of a value as a more expensive system that will last for years. Can they negotiate a better deal? This isn't just about the price, but also includes warranties and any options which may not be included in the initial purchase. Remember the idea of opportunity costs. As Mr. Sowers puts it, you can always spend what you save, but you can never save what you spend. So at this last part of our presentation, I would like to go over a few examples and illustrations, and we're going to be going over compounding, the rule of 72, and the impact of inflation. So one way to demonstrate compounding is to ask if a child would rather have a check for $1 million today or a penny that doubles in value every day for 30 days. And most kids are going to pick $1 million. This actually would have been a great question as well. And, you know, it is a shame because at the end of 30 days, $1 million left uninvested will be worth $1 million. On the other hand, a penny that doubles in value every day for 30 days will be worth more than $5 million. And if you're patient and can wait one more day for it to double again, you'll have more than $10 million. Now, of course, we will be hard-pressed to find any investment that doubles in value every day, and given what we've seen over the current time in the market, you can even lose money. But for the sake of this teachable moment, let's focus on the amazing power of compounding. Unfortunately, there are other easy ways to help kids understand what an investment could double, when an investment could double in value, and it's called the Rule of 72. The Rule of 72 is actually a mathematical formula which calculates approximately how many years it will take for an investment to double with an annual compounding interest rate. So it works by dividing the number 72 by the interest rate. The result is the number of years until an investment could double in value. Here's another one of those spots where I need to remind you this isn't intended as investment advice or a promise of performance, and your investment could lose value, so keep that in mind. But let's look at this example of this mathematical formula. Let's say I have $500 investment earning at 8% interest. Compounding annually using the Rule of 72 could be worth $1,000 in 9 years. So on the Yes You Can website, you can use the Compound Interest Fit tool to demonstrate how your savings can accumulate over time. And so why is it important that your child learn these lessons? Well, let's take a look at this chart. In the 20th century, the dollar lost 95% of its purchasing power. That means if in 1900 you put $1 under their mattress, that dollar would buy around 5 cents worth of goods and service today. Put another way, what you could buy for $1 in 1900 would cost more than $21 today. And here's some ideas to take their learning to another level. There's many youth organizations sponsor programs on money and finance for kids that are geared toward their interests, and there are organizations like the Girls and Boys Scouts, Junior Achievement, 4-H, and local community college. You could subscribe to financial magazines or other similar publications and discuss the articles together. Hands-on experience is another great way to learn about money. Have your children learn as much as they can about people they admire and what traits they have contributed to their success. Take your children or grandchildren to work if your company allows it is another great way to experience. Another idea is to have a mentor for your child to learn more. A suitable role model will share your money values, has a job you admire, runs a favorite local owned business, and basically someone you trust. Let your kids interview them and see where they work. Again, I'd just like to remind you that we will have a recording of this presentation available as well for your reference or for those who weren't able to attend. But once it's posted to the appropriate website, we'll definitely let you know where it's located to view, as we have all of your emails from the registration process. Lastly, we also have an amazing book of Yes You Can Raise Financially Aware Kids that explores this content I went over in much, much more detail. We will be sending the PDF version of the book with our thank you email, as well as providing access to download the book on the appropriate website I referenced before as well. So in close, I'd just like to ask, well, are there any questions I can answer?
So if anybody has any questions, you can feel free to use your question text or chat box to type those in, and we can address those for you. Rebecca, do you want to scroll to the next page, the next slide? And I think that has some contact information on there for all of you, as well as we referenced that you can find the resources, this presentation, on the website where many of you probably registered for today's presentation. Or if you have any questions, you can email us. You can email Rebecca directly. Her email is on the screen, or you can email myself, moderator@aspenrmg.com. It looks like we are all good to go. So with that in closing, Rebecca, thank you for taking the time to provide this really valuable information to help us guide our clients, our children, our grandchildren in learning how to be more financially aware and plan for their futures. So thank you very much. I hope you all have a wonderful day.
Thank you all for joining me today. I appreciate your comments, Phaedra. And again, if you guys have any questions or concerns, please do not hesitate to contact us at Heffernan Retirement Services. Thank you.
Thank you, and goodbye.